Hi, my name is Dr. Lorraine Ryan, and I'm an Associate Professor in Human Resource Management and Employment Relations. I work in the Department of Work and Employment Studies in the Chemie Business School. So, broadly, my research interest focuses on employment relations and decent work. And when we talk about decent work, essentially what we mean is work that's productive, that's equitable, and that provides a fair income and security in the workplace and social protection for everyone. It also allows things like personal development, social integration, and freedom for people to express their concerns at work, and mostly to participate in the decisions that affect their working lives. And this is in accordance with ILO principles. So, my key research focus right now is as a project lead for an Irish research team based here in the KBS on a Horizon funded European project called Integrate Dialogue, Enhancing Inclusiveness of Social Dialogue for Non-Standard Workers. So, this project involves a comparative approach among multiple countries across the EU, the United Kingdom, and Norway. So, when we talk about social dialogue, what we are referring to is any type of negotiation, consultation, participation, and information exchange among stakeholders within the world of work. When we talk about non-standard work, we talk about work that can take many different forms, including things like marginal part-time work, temporary employment, zero-hour contracts, on-call work, and agency work. So the focus of this project is to examine non-standard workers and to address their needs for effective representation in an evolving labour market. The labour market is marked by things like the digital and green transitions, and the scope of the project is to try to prevent an increase in things like inequality, in-work poverty, and social exclusion through improving social dialogue for non-standard workers. So in the project, we use a multidisciplinary and a comparative approach which encompasses multiple countries, different business models, as well as various forms of non-standard work and social dialogue at different levels.
Non-standard workers are traditionally those workers whose jobs do not align with the norm of a full-time permanent type job. In the past, for instance, we would have seen part-time contracts as a manifestation of such work. However, in more recent times, non-standard work has become much more prevalent and taken an awful lot more forms. So we see, for instance, 0 hours work, casual, on-demand work, low hours contracts, bogus self-employment, and work such as platform and gig work. The issue for many of these workers is that work is often low paid, has limited job security, and are not enough hours to provide a decent standard of living. Also, for some cohorts, they are not legally considered to be employees, and this has implications for access to rights standard workers enjoy, such as sick pay, pension rights, protection from unfair dismissal, and so on. Another issue that we often find is that we have migrant workers, maybe young workers and female workers who predominate in these jobs. So intersectionality is a feature, i.e. workers with multiple disadvantages. Unfortunately, also, many of these workers would have little or no representation in the workplace and no voice. Thus, they have no power to change their situation. This, then, is why the Integrated Dialogue project is so important, as it will shine a light on the key issues facing workers in terms of getting representation and voice at organisational and national levels and being part of a broader social dialogue. Non-standard work is increasing both in Ireland and in Europe, where the project is based, and thus it is important to ensure that these workers have rights and voice.
In this project, we're interested in looking at social dialogue across a number of different countries. Most countries have some form of social dialogue structures in place, whereby representatives of employers, trade unions, and the government discuss general economic and social matters. For example, social dialogue may differ in terms of collective employment relations, the role of collective bargaining in determining pay and working conditions, social partners' membership levels and influence, and formal structures for the involvement of social partners in policy making. The role and power of these bodies vary widely across countries. Some play more of an adversarial or consultative role on drafting legislation and policies, for example in relation to employment and work. Countries may also have tripartite bodies involving government, employers and trade unions that deal with very specific issues, for example in relation to employment, training, health and safety at work. So as social dialogue differs across countries in terms of both legal, cultural and institutional reasons, we're interested in looking at it across a number of different regimes, including a Nordic organised corporatist model that we find in Denmark and Norway, a social partnership model that we find in Western Europe in countries like Belgium and the Netherlands, a liberal pluralist model that we find in Ireland and the UK, a polarised or state-centred regime found in Southern Europe, which would be represented here by a state-centred organised corporatist model in Italy, and the fragmented state-centred regime of the centre-east, for example, in a country like Slovakia. So we're interested in looking at how institutional factors influence social dialogue for non-standard workers in each of those countries.
The world of work has faced considerable disruption in recent years and will continue to face disruption into the future due to things like climate change, technology, and major geopolitical events. And so policymakers, employers, and workers will need to manage this disruption together to ensure that they can meet the challenges that they will face. This will help to ensure productive economies, thriving businesses, and also fair work environments. So this project will provide key insights as well as a policy toolkit for stakeholders to shape social dialogue so that we can deliver decent work, voice, and inclusion for everyone.